It is week 14 of the NFL season. We have 6 teams on a bye, and if you are watching this episode, you're most likely either trying to get a bye or in a must-win matchup to punch your ticket to the fantasy playoffs. So on today's episode of the Progression to the Bean podcast, we have the only wide receiver rankings you'll hopefully need to punch your ticket to the fantasy offs. I am your host, Sean. I am joined by my good friend, my fellow co-host, my fellow knower of ball, Aiden Haller. Aiden, we are recording this Friday morning Pacific Standard Time. Jayden Reed has already goose-egged. We're off to a fantastic start for must-win weekend. Aiden, man, how you doing, dude?
I'm doing well, Sean. The Jayden Reed goose egg was something to see. Not really playing in 2 wide receiver sets, which has been a problem for him the last couple of weeks. So unfortunately, I don't think it's going to get a whole lot better for the Jayden Reed owners out there. But pretty exciting game nonetheless. You know, Josh Jacobs went nuts. Both quarterbacks played pretty well. Tucker Kraft played well. ARSB even got some good stuff. So that was an entertaining game. Dan Campbell is a fucking maniac. He amazes me. I was like, no way you go for it here, right? But hey, man, you don't give the ball back to the other team and you win the game. 11-1 moving on, so or whatever it is now. So
I wonder what the reason, like what the win probability added is on that, because I'm sure there is win probability added.
I'm sure it is, but
it's aggressive.
If you miss that, it's such an egg in your face. But that's who he is, you know. It's like 16s in blackjack. Like you just got to do it every time or don't do them at all, and he fucking hits them every single time. So credit to Dan Campbell and the Lions.
What I appreciate with him is he does not waver. Like
Never.
When you're in trouble, and you see this in blackjack too, is when the guy just starts hitting and like he's super aggressive at the beginning and then loses and then starts hitting.
Pressing.
Yeah. Or it's the Brandon Staley effect, right? Where you know he went super hard, super aggressive.
Now I gotta go.
And he kept going and then being like, and then he would stop going. I think what's indicative though of the Lions is, do you see the way the team reacted after they converted it? Like they were that team's all in. They want to get that. They wanted to go for it. They were juiced.
1,000%.
It's them imposing their will. Like sends a message, dude.
It's their identity.
Yeah, but it's risky. It's the one that I really liked was to go for the touchdown at the end of the half. He played against the Niners in the NFC Championship game, and they had an opportunity to do the same thing, and they kicked the field goal. Yeah. And it's the reason why the Niners came back and won. So it was cool to see him in real time pivot like that and go for it. And they had a great play call dialed up. I love that team. I just kind of hate that fan base because my joke is that everyone who's rooting for the Lions has tags on their jerseys still because they're all new.
They're fans. All fake. They're all fake.
Hey, whatever. It's a cool team, cool coach. Yeah, it'll be fun to watch them throughout the rest of the season in the playoffs. So let's dive into today's episode. Our format, if you're new to our ranking show, relatively straightforward here. I've gone ahead. I've ranked the top 53 wide receivers. Aiden, you've broken them out into, I think, 6 tiers, or do we have 7 this week?
We got 3, 4, 5. We got 6 tiers today.
All right, we have 6 tiers here. Really, at the end of the day, what I'm trying to do is give you an idea of a holistic viewpoint of what's going to impact this wide receiver the most this week. So I like to take a look at implied team total rank. So what does Vegas think this offense, the wide receiver, is going to do versus the competition? I like to take a look at expert consensus rankings over at Fantasy Pros, which is 80-plus fantasy experts rankings. And I'm trying to essentially give you an idea of where my rankings stack up against theirs. I want to take a look at the usage over the past month compared to the actual production, and that's expected fantasy points per game minus fantasy points per game. That gives us an idea of how efficient this wide receiver has been with their usage. And then I like to see what their opponent is giving up to wide receivers in terms of like where they rank. I'm going to share my screen. You're going to be able to look at it in real time watching this video. But if for any reason you want to dive in and look at the rankings after the fact, you can go ahead and click the link. It'll take you to a Google spreadsheet. My rankings are free. The last thing you'll see when you look at the rankings is the RTM score, which is just basically a composite ranking score. The lower, the better. And a projection system that I use. It's relatively new, but I think it's pretty solid so far with wide receivers. A little bit, I think, more predictive than running backs. Also, I've got some notes, but they're not super in-depth. But that's kind of for me when I'm processing everything. Aiden, I'm sure people, this is the first time they've watched one of our rankings shows, clicked on the thumbnail, ride or die. They're looking for as many inputs as possible this week in week 14. What should the people at home be expecting for today's episode?
Yeah, welcome to the show. Yeah, very important week. So we're honored that you are spending your time with us. Week 14, do or die. Sean kind of mentioned the format of our rankings. We keep it pretty simple. We don't talk through quite every person, but you're going to hear us talk about most guys in every tier. The model too is pretty simple. We're just going to like imply team totals, how have they been performing lately, and who are they playing this week. So yeah, feel free to enjoy the show. Everything's going to be in the description as well too. Both Sean's link, Sean's sheet here. We break it down by each player in all their tiers, so you can click around if you don't want to hear us banter the entire time. But yeah, sit down, enjoy the show. Your feedback is super valued. Whether you guys like, comment, subscribe. Yeah, you guys fueled the channel. We're the ones talking, but we do it for you guys, and we wouldn't be doing it if we didn't feel like we were helping give you guys an edge. So yeah, enjoy the show and good luck this week.
All right, let's dive in. Tier 1, wide receivers 1 through 7. Ja'Marr Chase, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Justin Jefferson, Mike Evans, T. Higgins, CeeDee Lamb, George Pickens. Ja'Marr Chase, he's the queen on the chessboard, man. If you've got him, you're likely sitting at a bye, best record in the league.
Yeah, you gotta be probably a bye. It'd be hard to not have a bye with Ja'Marr.
Him and Saquon have been, I'd say, the true fantasy MVPs from the front half of the draft based off of the fact that they've stayed healthy and they've just crushed it from day one. Yeah. Jamar's got number one production, number one usage over the past month, and he's going up against a Cowboys defense that you can throw on. And I don't think it really matters. The Bengals are going to throw it deep, and they're going to throw it to Ja'Marr Chase and T. Higgins, for that matter of fact, who I've ranked very high this week as well. I do think there are some concerns about them being eliminated from the playoff picture at some point. I don't think we see those concerns just yet. So if you've got Ja'Marr Chase in a must-win matchup, you're going to feel really good about where you're at. Amon-Ra St. Brown, he finally had a dud. His usage caught up to him, Aiden. He'd been kind of trending as a wide receiver 3 in terms of usage, but had just been dunking on that usage because of how efficient he was. Well, that kind of caught up to him this week. I still felt really good about him. I felt confident. It was a shootout environment. Green Bay, you can toss it on him. So it's a little surprising to see Amon-Ra St. Brown throw up a bit of a dud, but it is what it is. Hopefully you've already clinched your spot if you started St. Brown. Justin Jefferson, it feels like it's coming. I don't know when the explosive game is going to happen, but a 152 touchdown game's coming. So was it this week against Atlanta, who you can throw on? Potentially. Yep. But it's coming, guys. So just stay patient with Jettas. Mike Evans looked great last week. He's chasing 1,000 yards in an offense that has to score points because their defense is bad, and he has necessarily no target competition outside of his running backs and tight ends, and they have to keep winning. Mike Evans is one of my favorite players in fantasy down the stretch. He's going to win people leagues like he always does in the fantasy playoffs because that's just Mike Evans. T. Higgins, everything I highlighted about Ja'Marr Chase, basically T. Higgins is that just a little bit less, maybe 10% less. It's kind of been an amazing year for T. Higgins. He's been banged up, which is always classic T. Higgins, but when he's been out there, he's been fucking great. They just throw the ball around the yard, and it's very concentrated to T. Higgins and Ja'Marr Chase. CeeDee Lamb, a little bit concerned about the shoulder injury, but the usage is there. You can toss on Cincy, and I think this is a shootout. And George Pickens. Cleveland secondary can get exposed. Pickens didn't go off in the last matchup because of the snow. I think we see a little bit different of a game here for Pickens. So that's tier 1. Any thoughts here, Aiden, on these guys before we get to tier 2?
Yeah, I think you mentioned a good thing with Jettas. Like, it does feel like we're very close to a monster game. He's got just under 100 yards less than Ja'Marr Chase. Actually, he's number 2 in the NFL in yards, and it just feels like it's been a while since he's scored, and it hasn't been since week 7. So he's definitely long overdue for a trip to the end zone and could be in for a monster spot. Really good matchup. T. Higgins, like you mentioned, is just having a great year. He's going to get paid this offseason. The dude's been really good in terms of points per game. You mentioned he has missed a couple of games, but that's just who T. Higgins is. I think he comes in at 3rd or 4th right now. So really impressive year. They're going to keep airing it out. And then I love George Pickens again. This dude is just on a tear with Russ. That QB change absolutely resurrected him, and another good matchup. So we just saw Bo Nix, didn't do nearly as good as I thought, but still hung, I think, like 300 yards on that secondary. So I'd expect George Pickens to keep it up, give you at least 15, 20 points in your pivotal matchup this week.
All 7 of those guys are good. CeeDee Lamb, concerns about the shoulder, but I think he's going to play. But TBD on that. And he just can get re-injured. It's kind of a frustrating injury, but something to keep in mind. Wide receivers 8 through 16, tier 2 here. Drake London, Puka Nacua, AJ Brown, Cooper Kupp, Jakobi Meyers, Malik Nabers, DJ Moore, Jaxon, Smith-Njigba, Tyreek Hill. So Drake London is a major positive regression candidate here. Top 4 usage over the past month, 24th in production. Minnesota is a pass funnel. It is a Kirk Cousins revenge narrative game. The only problem is Kirk Cousins doesn't look good. So I don't know. I feel like London could have a bounce back game, but it's just a little bit nerve wracking right now with Kirk Cousins, but the usage is there. Puka Nacua is in a tough spot against Buffalo, but the usage has been incredible. He deviated from Cooper Kupp last week. They basically been neck and neck, and Puka got all the love, and Kupp barely was featured last week against the Saints. AJ Brown continues to play incredible, but Philadelphia does not throw the ball. So Philadelphia has the highest point total on the slate from Vegas, but they're just going to feed Saquon mercilessly. Now, we may get a touchdown from A.J. Brown. I don't know. Davante Smith is coming back, but this is a low pass rate team, man. So it's tough to bank on like elite ceiling production from AJB right now. Obviously, you're going to feel good rolling him out there. He's an incredible player, but the pass rate is way down, so it's just a little tough. Cooper Kupp, bounce back spot, but Buffalo's been stingy to wide receivers. The saving grace here is this game is played indoors in LA, I believe. So definitely has like a shootout type environment feel to it. Jakobi Meyers, Tampa Bay is just getting gashed as a defense. This is not the Super Bowl defense that we were used to. Aiden O'Connell looks surprisingly competent against Kansas City. His usage is fantastic. His production has been really solid. So he's got top 10 usage past month, top 17 production. He's even due for a little positive regression. I feel really good about Jakobi Meyers, man. If you're starting Brock Bowers or Jakobi Meyers, you got to feel pretty good about it. So I definitely like Meyers. Nabers is dealing with Drew Lock right now. I just feel like an explosive game could be coming, but I'm not going to hold my breath here with Nabers. DJ Moore is back, 100% back. San Francisco's been stingy to wide receivers, but DJM and Caleb are finally starting to have a little bit of a rhythm together. Thomas Brown has made a huge difference for the Chicago Bears, so you got to be happy about that. Jaxon Smith-Njigba, bizarre offense the Seahawks have, man. I like they don't feature this guy until they absolutely have to, and every time they feature him, they score a touchdown on that drive. I was talking about this on the running back show with Aiden, but they just have the worst offensive line in football, so it just feels like everything they do is trying to mitigate that. So it just creates bizarre usage and production for their stars. I don't really know how else to put it. You're going to see it with Kenneth Walker, JSN, and with DK Metcalf. They're all struggling right now, but they're winning games because their defense is playing good. And then Tyreek Hill, he's kind of second fiddle in the Jonnu Smith offense. So I make that as a joke, but it's the truth. And New York has been incredibly stingy to wide receivers, as they always are. So, I would not be shocked if it's just more Achane and Jonnu Smith checkdowns. Would not be shocked if that were the case. Now, if it's a big Tyreek Hill game, heck yeah, man. Would love it, but I'm not holding my breath. That's tier 2. Aiden, any thoughts on these guys before we jump to tier 3?
Yeah, you mentioned 2 main guys that I have concern about. Drake London. Just Kirk Cousins looked like pretty awful last week. Like it kind of felt like week 1 again, where like there was just like nothing behind his throws in terms of just like being able to play and throw the football. So absolute dream matchup for it this week in terms of Minnesota. But if Kirk Cousins, looks like that, it's bad news for him. It's bad news for Mooney. It's bad news for Kyle Pitts. So the Chargers are good defense. So, I'm going to kind of throw it out and, have a positive mindset, but a little nervous there. And then you mentioned the AJ Brown play. Both him and Smitty, it's like they have just turned into an absolute like running machine. Like you really need to hit home on efficiency and you need to score touchdowns, because I don't think you can bank on AJ Brown getting even close to 10 targets. You're probably going to be closer to 5, 6, 7. which is really challenging to hit home on. Like, you need big plays, you need touchdowns. So these are two guys that I'm, being cautious about. Absolute stars that have been like really good this year for us, but a little nervous. And then I want to touch on Nabers. I'm really glad Drew Lock is still starting. Ideally, Drew Lock starts for the rest of the year, as he's going to continue to pepper him with targets. At least the ball is getting out. Tommy DeVito is bad news for fantasy. So I think as long as we have Drew Lock under center for the rest of the season, I've got Nabers as a fringe wide receiver run rest of the season, just given he's going to get 10 targets a game, potentially even more.
Just what could have been with some of these receivers. What could have been, namely Malik Nabers. But man, and Tyreek Hill. But I'm still holding out hope that they can be impactful here in the fantasy playoffs. Tier 3 here, wide receivers 17 through 28. Again, Jeudy is going to be wide receiver 17. He could be higher, honestly. I don't know why ECR has him at 23, but we'll get there. Jeudy, Khalil, Shakir, Keenan Allen, Calvin Ridley, Marvin Harrison, Davante Adams, DK Metcalf, Jauan Jennings, Lad McConkey, who is questionable and trending towards being out, but just still having my rankings right now. Garrett Wilson, Jayden Reed, and Brian Thomas. Wow, I was down on Jayden Reed versus ECR. Look at that.
Yeah, you kind of nailed that one.
Yeah, wow.
We're even being generous.
So, okay, so Jerry Jeudy, we got to talk about it. So he's the wide receiver 2 over the past month on the wide receiver 17 usage. So he's borderline wide receiver 1 in usage, and he's just dunking on efficiency with these huge plays. I don't think he's going to keep hitting 80-yard touchdowns, but he's going to be a weekly top 12 thing, right?
It looks legit. The separation and the routes have been awesome. He's probably not breaking 80-yarders every week, but this is the best he's looked as a professional wide receiver. And, it's starting to pay off in the box scores. Jameis is hitting them often.
Yeah, so the thing with Jeudy is he's always been injured, and he's had really bad quarterback play. So he's healthy, and Jameis Winston is just hell-bent on hucking it. So it's kind of awesome to see Jeudy play this well. I'm a little salty. Don't really have much Jeudy in the fantasy rosters right now.
I agree. I got zero.
But good for Jeudy, honestly. And that contract he got looks like kind of a steal, all things considered. Shakir, this is a great spot for Khalil Shakir. Continues to be a positive regression candidate. I think the Rams have the offense to potentially push the Bills to be a little bit more pass heavy in a bit of a shootout environment. So I like Shakir this week. Keenan Allen continues to have excellent usage. He's essentially operating as kind of a high volume tight end. That's how he's playing as a bit of a red zone threat. He's not getting used downfield, mostly in the short area. He's kind of playing like Travis Kelce a little bit. That's who he reminds me of right now. Ridley's a good matchup, but he doesn't catch touchdowns because NWI is taking all of them. Marvin Harrison continues to be just a weird start weekly. Wouldn't be shocked if he scored 30. Wouldn't be shocked if he scored 6 points. Davante Adams, they made a real effort to feed him the ball last week. Wouldn't be shocked if they continue to do that. Tough matchup against Miami, though. DK Metcalf, we highlighted Seattle. Very bizarre, but I do think he deserves to be behind JSN. I think JSN is the best fantasy receiver right now in that offense. Jauan Jennings, tough matchup against Chicago, but I wouldn't be shocked if the Niners rebounded as an offense. Lad. Not having Lad this week would be a bummer. He might not play due to this knee injury. I'm seeing some stuff on Twitter that he's trending towards being out. So if you have Lad, have a backup plan in place. Oh, Quentin, we were both right and wrong about you, bud. Okay, so Garrett Wilson, they're just not throwing him the ball. He ran one of the nastiest routes I've seen, or receiver run, and then Aaron Rodgers just sucks. So
should have been a layup touchdown. The guy had 5 yards of separation inside the 5-yard line, which is pretty insane to do.
Brian Thomas is a freak of nature. However, he's got Mac Jones, the Rain, and Tennessee going against him this week. So not a great spot for BTJ. But, I don't know. That's tier 3, Aiden. Any thoughts on these guys before we get to tier 4?
Yeah. Just start with Lad. I hope he plays. He's just on a nasty tear. He's averaging, I think, just doing the quick math. I think it's like 100 yards over his last 3 games. So we've really seen him take off into, like a borderline wide receiver 1 in that offense, which has been a little surprising. So
definitely
super cool. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they do this offseason if they put someone next to him. Like him and T. Higgins would be so fucking sweet. But we'll see. Marvin Harrison, I had to double check because I was like, didn't they just play Seattle? And they did. They played 2 weeks ago. They 2 out of 3 games against Seattle. The first one was some slippery weather in Seattle. So I do expect him to fare a little better. It feels like they made him more of a priority last week, which was cool. He saw his most targets of the season with 12. So it's very week to week with this Arizona offense. We've complained about it multiple times. Just there's no easy button. It's no layup targets. Very confusing offense, but excited to see what he does this week. And then I have to talk about at least one Bear wide receiver. So Keenan Allen is worth noting. Whether or not he deserves it, like the usage, like is very, very strong right now. He is scoring touchdowns and making great plays too. So, credit to him. I'd love to see more Rome, but he's performing. Wide receiver 14 on wide receiver 16 usage. So pretty much delivering exactly what he's given. The last couple of weeks. We'll see how that goes. San Francisco, tougher secondary, but he's a route running fiend.
We're going to get to Rome Odunze in a second. Here's the lad quote on whether he'll play Sunday night against the Chiefs. Shoot, if I can play, I'm going to play. At the end of the day, I'm going to do whatever I can to be out there. Not the most confident.
I don't know if I love that.
But I kind of like it better when a player's like, yeah, I'm playing. They like never play. So
unless you're Malik Nabers.
All right. Okay. Tier 4 here. Wide receivers 29 through 41. Jordan Addison, Adam Thielen, Elijah Moore, Jameson Williams, DeAndre Hopkins, Devonta Smith, Darnell Mooney, Jalen Waddle, Marquez Valdes-Scantling, Rome Odunze, Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, Xavier Worthy, and Deebo Samuel.
The mighty have fallen. The mighty have fallen.
I'm not ready to talk about Deebo. We're going to get to Mr. Tyson soon. All right, so Addison, this is a good game environment. Everything we highlighted with Jefferson, it's like, it's very similar to T. Higgins, where it's just maybe like 20% less. This is a good spot for that entire passing offense. So I like Addison this week. He's a good play. He's been efficient, which is what you love to see. And I mean, that's kind of been the story of his career, but he's efficiency on a little bit more volume, which is good. Thielen, wow, that was fucking awesome. No Thielen lined up on any of my leagues, but that was pretty cool. And that catch he made at the end of that
he should have had 2 also. They robbed him of the 1. Yeah, they robbed him of 1.
Yeah, I mean, amazing stuff here from Adam Thielen. And, he's an old guy that lost steam at the end of last season, and he didn't really play this year. So I'm not surprised he has a bunch of juice right now, considering, legs are fresh for Adam Thielen. Keep an eye out on if Jalen Coker plays. That could impact Thielen's snaps. That is a TBD. Okay, wide receiver 31, Elijah Moore. I don't get why he's so low on ECR. He is the wide receiver 25 in fantasy points per game over the past month on the wide receiver 21 usage. Pittsburgh sure has been tough to wide receivers, but he plays in the slot. He's a bit of a short ADOT guy, which limits his ceiling, but like, I don't know, man. I wouldn't fade anyone in this passing attack. So I like Elijah Moore. Jameson Williams played last night, had a nice game. DeAndre Hopkins here. They're not making him a full-time player. Makes me think they're saving him for the playoffs. He's not like getting a full complement of routes here. So
they might just be keeping him fresh.
Yeah. Devonta Smith, welcome back. I'm gonna have to play him. I'm not super juiced about it, unfortunately, but he's too good to sit, and the Panthers aren't very good, so you have to imagine that Smitty could maybe get loose for one here. Waddle did not take advantage of his big game against the Patriots, didn't do much last week. Now gets a matchup against the Jets. What a brutal season for Jalen Waddle. He's on the Deebo Samuel brutal season list here. Marquez Valdes-Scantling just continues to catch touchdowns. Wide receiver 8 in points per game over the past month. Wide receiver 67 usage. You don't see that very often. A 59 59 difference in positive efficiency. Some might
That's
say he's
crazy,
going
bro.
to regress, but they've literally got no one out there. Like there's no one catching passes for them.
No.
So I mean, he's
And
a
Taysom's
pretty
gone too. Like there's even less this week to compete with.
he's a decent streamer, man. So MVS, get him in the lineup if you're desperate. Roma Dunze. So they don't give him good routes.
Easy routes, I'd say.
No.
Yeah, but good. Yeah.
They don't give him good, like, bankable. I mean, eventually he's going to get hit home on one of these big plays.
Yes.
But it's
They're
not
trying,
a great fantasy role for him. It's not that great, honestly.
He's like the borderline sacrificial X right now.
He is.
It's like, and Keenan and DJ have benefited largely, because, but yeah, it's frustrating. And like him and Caleb have missed on a couple of big plays that, make this look a lot different. But, we're just playing the what if game at that point. So it's really hard to trust him again as the third fiddle against a pretty tough San Francisco secondary.
It's coming, but it's not easy for a Dunze. So if you're like sitting in your lineup being like, what do I do? I wouldn't play him, but at the same time, he is a positive regression candidate. So
and one of these weeks, it is going to pop. Like, it's coming.
It's going to hit home, yeah. Westbrook-Ikhine, TD dependent boomer bust play, but Jacksonville, you can throw it on him. Will Levis is playing a lot better. Xavier Worthy, he's getting some more volume now, but are they ever going to get home on one of these big plays, Aiden?
I don't know. It's like, dude, there's like a dozen of them. Like the montage of
there's a highlight reel
this year is.
There's a mixtape of just Mahomes missing him. Yeah. Like I don't know what's going on. Mahomes is ruining my life. That's the truth here. At Deebo Samuel. Oh,
just brutal, yeah.
I mean,
it just doesn't look like he's got the juice. I don't know if he's old or if he's hurt, but it doesn't look like Deebo this year.
No CMC, you have to imagine. It could be a good game for Deebo, but the offense has had zero creativity. He got hurt multiple times earlier in the year. I think this offense is lifeless. This team is lifeless and dead inside. And it's funny because Deebo is kind of the heartbeat of the team, man. So when Deebo isn't playing well, like it's no shock that we suck.
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. Not a fun tier, but big names in this tier. Anyone speaking your language, anyone you're higher or lower on in tier 4?
I wouldn't be surprised if Smitty hits on ECR. Like 35 is pretty low for him, but again, it's like the Philly passing offense is just like leaving me restless lately. So you probably got to play him, but like you might get burned on it. Westbrook-Ikhine, man, just stop scoring so many touchdowns. He has like 20 catches. I think he's scoring
20
on like
catches,
almost
8 touchdowns.
Yeah, almost every other. So it's like surely it's going to
it's
stop.
What
at some
we like
point.
to call negative regression. I mean, just a screaming negative regression. But
if you're starting him, man, so be it. Jacksonville can be beat through the air, so it's fuck it. Maybe he's going to score again. I don't know. So
mask off.
Yeah, this is the last tier where you're probably comfortable starting players, and then we kind of get to the last two, and it's like, oh boy, buckle up.
Tier 5 here. Xavier Legette, Brandon Cooks, Amari Cooper, Christian Watson, Parker Washington, Quentin Johnston, Dontavian Wicks. These are wide receivers 42 through 48. Brandon Cooks had good usage in return. We're seeing it with Adam Thielen. Maybe we see it with Brandon Cooks. Parker Washington is an interesting streamer, but a tough matchup against Tennessee. But he looked good. Like this is the second time in 2 years now where like he's gotten some run and actually looked pretty good.
He's an NFL wide receiver, I think.
Quentin Johnston, this could be a big game for him if Ladd doesn't play, but he's got stone hands. So this tier is, Watson had a nice game. And Dontavian Wicks had like 5 targets, 8 points, 9 points, not bad. But anything in this tier here before we wrap it up with tier 6?
Yeah, I actually still really like Xavier Legette. That offense continues to improve week over week. His usage too remains pretty. Like he had another 8 targets last week, 6 the week before. So they're still getting him very involved. So I like XL the most out of this tier. Oh, and then Amari Cooper, pretty similar to DeAndre Hopkins. just really not playing much. He's a part-time player right now, whether it be, the wrist injury still bothering him or keeping the older legs fresh. Really hard to start with Amari Cooper. I thought I was going to kind of save him, and it's more or less kind of killed him in Buffalo, unfortunately.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on there with that pass catching core. I do think that once we see it with Amari Cooper, I'll believe it, because I still believe in him as a player and I believe in this offense. But
could you imagine the numbers he'd be doing right now with Jameis?
Yeah, I can.
He'd be
called
like
Jerry Jeudy. It's called Jerry
Jeudy, like
Jeudy.
a top 5 play, top 10 play. But
bit of good news. Bucky Irving practicing.
There we go. We needed that one.
There it is, boys. All right, final tier here, 49 through 53. Keon Coleman, Curtis Samuel, Michael Wilson, David Moore, Jalen Coker. So Buffalo and Carolina wide receivers. I mean, Keon's interesting. Welcome back after the wrist injury. He was really developing rapport as kind of the guy in this offense, so we'll see if that holds. Curtis Samuel did nothing off the bye. Michael Wilson continues to be a good role player. I don't know if he'll ever expand beyond that, but he's definitely an NFL wide receiver. And then we got the 2 Carolina guys. Anyone in here before we get out of here?
No, I'm pretty good off this tier. I thought David Moore might be a real thing, and then last week I was like, not really. But
9
I guess
points.
It still wasn't terrible. No, I can't start any of these guys.
No, Keon's somebody, if he got dropped, go pick him up, put him on the end of your bench. Keep an eye out, because if he comes out and he's good off the wrist injury, that's a valuable asset for the fantasy playoffs.
Yep.
That's it, man. 53 wide receivers, 6 tiers. I ask you this usually after every ranking. Which wide receiver on this sheet are you most excited to watch play this week?
I'm most excited. Kind of Jerry Jeudy. Jerry Jeudy's got my attention. Jerry Jeudy firmly has my attention. It was never a talent issue with Jerry Jeudy. So I'm excited to see if the encore continues, as it's been a really impressive month for him.
I like Jeudy. That's a fun one. For me, as always, because I am just such a JSN bro. It's just JSN, man. I just want to watch the guy hoop. I like doing it. I like watching JSN go out there and ball, man. It pains me as a Niner fan, but this is somebody I've staked my reputation on a little bit. And he's balled out.
That's 10 toes. That's 10 toes.
That's 10 toes a bit. Yeah, man. But Aiden, I appreciate you always for hopping on. Running backs are out in the feed. Wide receivers Saturday mornings. So grab your coffee. You know what to do. Hit the rankings show. 3 more weeks, man, and we're done.
Hang in there.
We're done, and then we get to do some dynasty stuff. Talk about our thoughts on the season. But man, we're almost done here with the season. It's been a great time. But Aiden, I appreciate you for joining, and thank you everybody for tuning in. As always, we'll see you next time.